For a moment, the peaceful zen that we were getting at the top of this episode gave me some cause for pause, but boy, they did pick up. Hello, everyone. Terrence with Hollywood already did it. If you haven't already, go ahead, like, share, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, ring that bell below. Anytime we have something, you will be among the first to know. Episode 3 of Snowfall, called Door of No Return, is here. And this is an episode that kind of deals with the fallout of the sit down that happened in the episode before. Things have changed around the streets, and we sort of get a bird's eye view of someone who is not really in it. Looking at and kind of speaking to basically a roaming, walking Switzerland, meaning a place that has no connection to either, but is just seeing all the damage that has sort of occurred in that world. And it's Lee. We re-enter Lee back into this world, but we start off with Lee being, and Wanda being blissful and happy in Ghana, which made me feel like, oh, we're taking a completely different turn with this show. Made me a little nervous, not gonna lie, mainly because season 5 did a lot of just weird and wild stuff with the tone of the show, but it course corrects pretty quickly. The point of this opener is to show Lee and Wanda being at peace and being happy, being in a different state of mind when not having to deal with the stresses that come with the drug game in LA. Wanda is completely happy. She's like, no, we ain't never got to go back. This is great. I love it here. Why would we ever return? Do we need to return? And Lee is dealing with this conscience of saying there's a lot of past mistakes that he's made, and he feels he needs to return to sort of course correct them. Start seeing signs that kind of speak to that. The feeling that he gets, he's still feeling the guilt of killing a kid and sort of the damage that he's done to his community as a whole. There's an interesting back and forth that he has with Wanda talking about slavery versus the drug game. He's like, I feel like people who are in slavery have a better chance of freedom or a better chance of getting out of it than those in the crack game. Like if you put freedom in front of slavery, they're slaves, they're running towards it. But if you put freedom in front of crackheads, they're always looking back. And it's interesting, he says that because Wanda, being a former crackhead, he doesn't seem to put her in that same category, which is interesting. She seems to be okay now. So the one thing that I'm like, yeah, Lee, you can save at least one person. I'm not sure if you want to go back and save the whole community. You can save at least one. Wanda's there with you and you can save her. You got her. She's free. Don't put her back in that world because I don't know if she's strong enough to put all of her pieces back together and sort of deal with the past. Her whole point is, here we're completely different people. We're new people. Anything that we've done in our past does not define us. We're completely reinvented here and no one knows of our past mistakes. Let's go forth and build upon that. And Lee just keeps having this nagging feeling in the back of his head, like, I need to fix what I left before we can continue on. So Lee's planning to go back, kind of with or without her, but he wants her. He can't do it without her. He needs her to be by his side. So they get married and return to LA after their ceremony. Return to LA, and man, the block is hot. Like it is wild, wild west in these streets. He gets to the corner that he used to be the purveyor of, and D has that place armed to the teeth. People are walking around with visible guns left and right. And as he's getting sort of a debrief from one of D's right hands, the music one, I can't remember his name at the moment, he is sort of seeing all of this carnage that has sort of taken place. And he's taken aback by it. But he starts learning the war that has started between Franklin and Jerome and Louis. But he's confused. He doesn't understand it. He's like, why would Franklin attack his own family? Like, that doesn't make any sense. And he starts talking about the hits back and forth, that they've just been going, no rhyme or reason or rules of engagement in this. People shooting up homes and business places and warehouses where they keep things. Like, it's just been bedlam massively. And Franklin has tried to make a move on D, and he was stopped because police all of a sudden showed up. It's just anarchy. And everybody's watching their back all the time. Lee is the one person who can sort of move from faction to faction to faction without being taken out yet because the side hasn't been chosen. He's out the game, so he can kind of move freely, and he does. And that's where we sort of get to see how each group is sort of operating in this mode. Lee first meets with D, and kind of like his home is just a drug den. Like, you got people smoking crack right on the couch. You got people having sex butt naked in front of everybody. It's just wild, wild west in that place. He's playing games. It's just, there's a very different manner of approach that the way that Lee ran the block and the way that D does. But there's still a level of respect because he was the one that kind of started this. The other man, he talks to D, and D kind of gives him the heads up, like, hey, yo, Franklin lost his mind. And he's like, why? And Franklin's like, he lost all his money. Because Lee is under the impression, like, why would Franklin do any of this? He's set. Like, he out the game. He's set. He's like, no, you ain't heard. He lost all his money. And that sort of clicks with Lee to let him know, like, oh, well, I can see sort of Franklin flipping off if he lost all his money. And in that, D was like, cool. You in the game? No? All right, cool. Then stay out. As long as you stay out and know your lane, we ain't got no problems. So then he moves on and goes to the next location. While that's happening, Franklin meets with Dee and her mom to discuss sort of the plan that they have, and everything seems to be full stop, full go. They have the papers and things set up the way that they need to. And then the next thing that we see is that Franklin and V attend Westside Development like announcement ceremony because they're going to continue their path to try to become legitimate. With all the chaos that is happening, it seems weird to try to create business properties, considering they're going to probably get shot to holy hell, but that is what he decides to do. That's how he's kind of trying to move and legitimize his business. The B story that's happening in this episode is between Teddy and Gustavo. Gustavo is doing a meet with Louis, and his handlers are in on it, and they take photos of Louis and Uso doing the drop together. So they now have Louis on the photos being the person to exchange with, and now wrapped up in all this stuff with Teddy. After the drop, he returns to Teddy, and Teddy's like, yo, we got to make a room. I need you back here at 3 o'clock in the morning tomorrow. We got to go to Costa Rica. and Uso's like, well, hold on, what? He tells him a little bit more, like, I need you to go with me. It'd be a couple of days. Uso freaks out immediately, goes to his handlers, like, hey, I don't know what's happening, because in his brain, he's like, I might not come back. So I need you to get your stuff together. What's happening? I'm going to be in Costa Rica. His handlers at that point are just like, cool. Now that we have Louis on tape, we're planning to make a move on Teddy's compound in the next 2 to 3 days. So we're going to need you to be back. However you got to do it, do whatever it is he needs to do, but you need you to be returned back here in time. Next stop that Lee makes on his route of just learning what the hell is happening in these streets, and he goes to see Jerome and Louis. And it's a bit way more contentious there. He doesn't have the leg up or the cachet, if you will, as he had at that pad as he does here. They pat him down. He's bringing a gift for them for their wedding, but they really don't want to have anything to do with it. They don't want to hear anything he has to say because for them, they know that most of his attachment was to Franklin, and so he, at heart, is an enemy. And they are just taking out anybody. They don't know if it's a trap, what this is. So they're just on guard the entire time. And Jerome, in a not so nice way, tells him to stand down and sit this one down and take his ass back to Africa. Like, yo, get your happy-go-lucky ass back to Africa. We ain't got time for that no more. You done found Zen in peace because you done killed one kid and feel bad about them bodies, so take your ass back over there. He doesn't want to have anything to hear anything that Jerome has is peddling out. He tells him to take that African gift back too. He's like, yeah, take this and throw that mother away. And Lee is he's like, no, keep it, do whatever it is you want to do with it. But I need you guys, I would be remiss if I didn't at least try to fix this. Sissy's going to lose her mind if either of you kill each other. And at that time, Jerome was like, why do you care, boy? You ain't family. And he says it in a way that just feels mean-spirited and hateful. But he also puts in like the ear that Franklin was just using you. Like he used you to put bodies on you to do all this dirty work. Franklin didn't do none of the dirty work. He used you to make you feel like family. Some of that might be true. A lot of it is Jerome projecting and saying how he feels that Franklin is sort of used, he and Louis. That like, hey, Franklin built all of what he has on the backs of them doing a lot of the grimy stuff. Franklin couldn't get his hands dirty. And we've seen this. Franklin often would as you started, would put the gun in somebody else. Somebody else would do the dirty work. Somebody else would do the work. Usually, the three of those folks in that room, Louis, Jerome, and Lee, and Franklin would sit it out. He's kind of remembering that now, and so he had even more anger. Like, look, when you was family, I was okay with doing it, but now that we're not, I got a problem with it. And so Lee leaves that place, probably not allowed to be there anymore. The saddest part of this episode is sort of Wanda's reaction or brought back to this LA world. Wanda was never the strongest person anyway. She could always revert back to her bad ways. She was 100% at peace at the beginning of this episode in Ghana. She was living a good life. But she did still have an affinity for her grandmother. Her grandmother, she was looking for this necklace that she was going to buy and bring back to her grandmother. So she attempts to make this peace offering or this gift to her. She goes and knocks on her grandma's door. And grandma keeps the screen door locked and speaks to her through the screen. And she wants no real parts of Wanda. Wanda is clean, obviously. We know that. Wanda's clean, but the last time that grandma saw Wanda, she was cracked out, still in her pearls, still in dresses, not in a good way, punching her, beating her up. Grandma still holds all of that pain that Wanda caused her to the best. Like, she feels all of it. And so she kind of rebuffs her gift. And she says, like, hey, look, I don't know what you are or who you are, but I know the last time that I saw you, you caused me pain. And Wanda's whole point of staying with Ghana is like the life that she used to live is no more. People don't know her of that. She doesn't have to wear this tag of being the Coke person or who's doing tricks and all this stuff for Coke. She goes back here and she goes right back to being the bottom of the barrel in this world. She's known as nothing. And so she just leaves the gift outside the door for her grandma and runs off crying. So last we see her this episode, I do fear that she's going to revert back to the life because that's painful. Like, the only person that she cared about was Lee, who brought her back to this world, and her grandma. And now her grandma has seemed to rebuffed her advances of trying to like fix that. Understandably so. Like, it was a lot that she went through. But it's going to be interesting to see what side of this one, if she's strong enough now with what she's lived through, and what she knows is on the other side, if she's able to get back there before it's too late and she kind of stuck back in her old ways. Teddy and Uso go through this whole rigmarole and plan to get a shipment of weapons. The plan works. They get the shipment, but it doesn't really equate to much, except for they get a clue or an idea of sort of who's watching them. While they're doing everything, they are having photos being taken by the KGB. And so when on their plane back after a successful sort of run, quasi-successful, reach in the bag and they find a screw. And unscrew the screw and it has the word criminal in it in Russian, to sort of give a clue that somebody's on to them and that their cover's sort of been blown. And now Teddy is now probably going to be on more guard because now he's aware that someone is kind of watching him. The last person that Lee goes to see on this round robin of Switzerland and being at peace and trying to see what the hell is happening, obviously goes to see Franklin. And Franklin is still at his loft. He has a gun at the door. His loft is taken to holy hell. Like, it's just damaged. Apparently, Jerome and Louis had crooked cops come in with a warrant and just destroy everything. They weren't searching for anything. There's nothing to search for. Because Lee's like, you don't even keep anything here. He's like, I know that, but they weren't looking for anything. They just wanted to ruffle things up and piss me off. And Lee had brought some foods and burgers and like, let's just chop it up. So they chop it up, they eat, and Franklin lets Lee know because he knows how much Lee liked Javi. How Lee is the one that gave Javi's the one that sort of gave Lee the idea, like, you should go to Africa. Like, he put me on this journey and this trip. You should see the world. You should see things. You're more than this. And he lets him know that Javi's dead. Doesn't let him know that he knows who did it. And it's always a weird thing. Franklin, he's aware. He knows. But he's not letting Lee know. He's keeping that one up close to best, which is a shame. I feel like that's going to come to bite him in the butt eventually, in that Lee I don't know where Lee sides with. I don't know. A lot of things that Franklin's doing is reckless, but I feel like most of his connection or loyalty lies with Franklin. Franklin tells him, like, hey, look, you and your wife are doing great. You're doing great. If you're going to be here, you got to pick a side. I don't know what side it is, but you got to pick one. If you're not going to pick a side, I need you to take your wife and go back, take your ass back to Africa. And you need to do so quickly. Because this is Beirut at this point. It's essentially what he's saying, like, yo, this is real out here. You probably need to get the hell up out of here. Because this is going to only get worse. And Lee kind of just acknowledges that, and we go to black. This is a weird, it's not quite a bottle episode because we see multiple venues and multiple locations. But it is for the movement of the LA story. The Uso Teddy story moves along. That story is kind of sort of sit still. We get a recap of what happened, but everything kind of is in the motion of just watching Lee move to the triangle, the three places that sort of exist that he needs to reconnect and kind of get caught up. And we see that Bedlam has taken place. It's going to be interesting to see how the next few episodes unfold, to see which side he picks on. Fortunately, to see the damage that is caused by Wanda kind of being reinserted back into this world. And seeing it now makes the opening sequence of this episode a lot harder and hit a lot harder because everything did seem so peaceful and better for both Lee and Wanda to come back here and kind of reinsert themselves back into just some shit. Like that's literally what they're coming back, reinserting themselves back in a mess that while Lee feels responsibility for, I think he would have been able to, as Wanda said, done more peace from afar. Now he had to come back and get his money. That's why he's here. But I think he would have been able to do things from afar or come get his money and just get the hell back out. But he's trying to figure out and fix things. And I don't think this is something that can be fixed without getting a lot of the tarnish back on him. Not as strong as the first two episodes, but purposeful and kind of seeing the fallout and seeing how Lee sort of assesses the entire situation. Nobody's right anymore and everybody's doing anything wrong. And I know Sissy is aware of all of this. I would have liked to get a little bit more of her insight and how she feels mentally about her brother and her son just going at it in these streets. But what did you guys think about this third episode of the final season of Snowfall called Door of No Return, which fittingly, nothing can go back to the way that it was previously. That's why that title was there. Leave your thoughts and comments in the comments below. If you haven't already, you can follow us on Twitter at HollywoodADI. You can hit us up on email at HollywoodAlreadyDidIt@gmail.com. We also have a podcast with the same name. That's on Google Podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere that plays podcasts. We're there. And like always, I got my ticket. You got yours.